You know that feeling when you're just pulled in completely different directions? Like, you feel you should do one thing, but maybe something else feels easier or just less complicated.
Oh, absolutely. It's that sense of inner conflict, that tangle of what's the right thing here. It's deeply human.
Yeah, and it reminds me of Arjuna right there on the battlefield. We've touched on this before, staring down this huge, awful action, feeling utterly conflicted about it. That bewilderment, that's really what we're diving into today.
Exactly. And this text, chapter 3 specifically, it really gets into the heart of that. How do we act? How do we navigate the world? Especially when the choices feel, well, tough
Yeah.
or even contradictory.
Right. And we're looking at this from a few angles for this deep dive. We've got some insights from YouTube discussions, some expert talks.
And also that PDF commentary we've been using. It gives a different, sort of more structured view.
Yeah, multiple perspectives. It helps, helps it all sink in better, I think.
It really does. Seeing it from different viewpoints helps uncover the real depth of these ideas.
Okay, so chapter 3, where do we start? We'll look at the intro, verses 1 to 7, how it kicks things off with Arjuna's confusion.
Then the big one, karma yoga.
Yeah.
That's the core theme, really.
Yeah.
Verses 8 through the first part of 20, acting without attachment.
And
Then we look at the role of a wise person. What does it look like in action? That takes us up to verse 29. After that, a quick summary section, verses 30 to 35.
we can't skip the big challenge, right? It's desire. Verses 36 to 43 tackle that head on.
Definitely. Plus, we need to connect this all back to chapter 2, which we covered last time. See how it builds.
And maybe give a little nod towards chapter 4 for next time. Keep the flow going.
It's like a plan.
So the mission today, pull out the practical stuff. How can this help you navigate life, act meaningfully, cut through the noise? We're aiming for those aha moments.
Okay, chapter 3, verses 1 to 7. Right away, you feel that tension from Arjuna. He's not just listening, he's really struggling.
Totally. The commentary points this out. He basically asks Krishna, hang on, if knowledge is so great, why are you pushing me into this horrible action? He feels like he's getting mixed signals.
It's such a relatable feeling. You hear one thing, then another seems to contradict it. What do you do?
And Krishna's first response is interesting. He doesn't exactly say Arjuna is wrong, does he?
No, he introduces these two paths or disciplines. The yoga of knowledge for those really focused on understanding, the contemplatives.
And the yoga of action for the yogis, the active ones.
Right. It's acknowledging different temperaments, different ways to approach the goal. Not necessarily saying one is better yet, just that there are these two ways.
Okay, so that sets us up perfectly for the main event of chapter 3, karma yoga, verses 8 to early verse 20.
That's right.
So karma yoga, let's break that down. What are we actually talking about here?
Well, at its core, it's about acting. Acting with your whole focus on the action itself, but crucially without being hooked on the results.
So not worrying about what will I get out of this or will this succeed?
Exactly. It's about the quality of the action, the intention behind it, rather than just the outcome.
Yeah.
There was that discussion with Swami Vidya.
Ah, yes, the YouTube transcript. What did he say?
He put it really clearly. Performing action without that constant inner voice saying, I am doing this, and just as importantly, without desperately needing the result to be a certain way.
That's hard, though. That I am doing this voice is pretty loud sometimes.
It is, and Swami Vidya uses this powerful example. Think of the divine, Ishvara, constantly acting, creating, sustaining, dissolving the universe.
Right, huge actions.
But completely unbound by the karma of those actions. Now, obviously, it's a very high level.
Yeah, exactly. You might be sitting there thinking, okay, great for Ishvara, but how does that apply to me paying my bills or dealing with my boss?
And that's the practical point Swami Vidya makes. It's not about becoming the cosmic creator overnight. It's about growth. We can learn gradually to act with less of that intense, I am the doer feeling.
And experience the results without being completely defined by them, whether they're good or bad.
Precisely. He talks about the law of karma, cause and effect, sure, but also that feeling we all get, why me? What did I do?
Yeah.
Karma yoga offers a way to act within that law, but without the sense of being personally bound and trapped by every single consequence. It's a shift in perspective.
So we don't need to become Ishvara in the sense of, creating galaxies.
No, probably not. But maybe we can cultivate the mind of Ishvara, that kind of detachment, that ability to see the same underlying reality in everyone, everything.
That sounds like freeing yourself from those strong likes and dislikes. What were the terms? Raga and Dvesha.
Exactly. Swami Vidya points out that those strong attachments and aversions, they're signs of dependency. Our happiness gets tied to things being a certain way.
And that really speaks to wanting to feel less overwhelmed, doesn't it? If you're not constantly yanked around by, I want this or I hate that, maybe there's more space, more peace.
That's the idea. He says our true nature is freedom. It's the attachments, the aversions that create the feeling of bondage.
And then he said something really counterintuitive about making karma, our actions, a way to give love, not just seeking gain or avoiding harm.
Yes, that's quite a radical reframing. Instead of action being transactional, I do this to get that, it becomes expressive. An expression of care, connection, love, essentially.
That challenges a lot of how we normally think about work or even relationships
It
sometimes.
does, and it connects to his other point, that maybe we're already whole. We don't need actions to get us wholeness, but maybe actions done right help us discover the wholeness that's already there.
That feels like one of those potential aha moments. Okay, so action isn't just about getting stuff done, it's about how you do it and what state of mind you're in.
Precisely. Which brings us nicely to the next bit, verses 20 to 29, the role of a wise person. How does someone who kind of gets this actually operate?
Right, the Jnani, as Swami Paramarthananda called them in that discussion on 3.27 and 28.
Exactly. The commentary talks about them acting without being fooled by the gunas.
Gunas, those are the qualities of nature, right? Like activity, inertia.
Correct. The wise person sees these forces playing out in themselves, in the world, but they aren't personally swept away by them. They don't identify with being the doer in the same way.
So unlike someone maybe less aware, who's constantly driven by, I want this result, or I need to avoid that outcome.
Yes. Swami Paramarthananda explained it as the Jnani understanding that it's the gunas, the qualities of nature interacting, that are fundamentally acting. They don't pin it on their personal self, their ego.
Okay, that's a subtle but huge difference in perspective.
It is. And interestingly, the commentary adds that such a wise person shouldn't go around trying to unsettle or confuse people who are still very attached to actions and results.
Why not? Shouldn't they share the wisdom?
There's a sense of respecting where people are. Forcing understanding usually backfires. You let people learn and grow. It's about not disturbing their process unnecessarily.
So the wise person isn't swayed by, like, fleeting pleasures or getting bogged down in material stuff, like we saw hinted at back in chapter 2.
That's the idea. They've found a deeper source of contentment, so those external things lose their grip. Their focus is internal, on the quality of being and acting, not just the external reward.
Okay, so let's move to the summary section, verses 30 to 35. What's the core instruction here?
It boils down to engaging in action, but without that inner fever, as the commentary calls it. No agitation, no regret, no looking back anxiously.
How do you do that?
By dedicating the actions, offering them up, whether you conceive that as the divine or a higher purpose or just the greater good, acting without expectation, without egoism, me and mine.
It sounds like finding that inner quiet place, even while you're busy acting in the world, getting free from the noises of samsara. That phrase stuck with me.
That's a great way to put it. Freedom from the constant mental chatter and worry about outcomes. If you're not chasing results or regretting the past, you can be fully present in the action itself. There's liberation in that.
But there's a big but, isn't there? Verses 36 onwards. Desire.
Ah, yes. The major hurdle. Chapter 3 doesn't shy away from it. Desire is identified as this powerful force that can pull us off course.
The commentary really emphasizes its strength, right? Like a current pulling you along.
Definitely. And when it's uncontrolled, the text explains, it leads straight to delusion, to attachment. It clouds our thinking.
And it binds us, right? It makes us dependent on getting what we want, which is the opposite of karma yoga's detachment.
Exactly. It fuels those attachments and aversions Swami Vidya was talking about. Desire is the engine driving that sense of bondage.
So does chapter 3 give us the magic fix for desire?
Not quite a magic fix, no. But it clearly points to the battlefield, the senses and the mind. The solution involves gaining mastery there.
Yeah.
Recognizing desire as the main enemy, that's a huge first step presented here.
Okay, that makes sense. It's the root problem to be aware of. Now, we said we'd connect this all back to chapter 2. How does this build on what we already explored?
Fundamentally, chapter 2 laid the groundwork by explaining the nature of the self-eternal, unchanging, unborn, undying. Remember those descriptions?
Yes, the self is beyond action and consequence, essentially.
Exactly. And knowing that, or at least deeply understanding that concept, is what makes karma yoga possible. If your true self isn't the ultimate doer, then you can act without that crippling attachment to results.
Ah, I see. The commentary mentioned that in relation to verse 3.17, the one who knows the self doesn't see themselves as killing because the self can't be killed. That understanding changes everything.
It dissolves the ego's claim on the action and its results. And remember the idea of nistha, or steadfastness, from Chapter 3,
Yeah.
that wasn't pulled out of thin air. It directly links back to the two kinds of steadfastness introduced in Chapter 2, steadfastness in knowledge, Dhanana Yoga, and steadfastness in action, Karma Yoga. Chapter 3 is diving deep into the how of steadfastness in action.
Got it. So that other commentary, the Swami Gita Bhasya 5 one, also stressed these two paths being laid out right from the start.
Yes, it reinforces that the Gita presents these two valid lifestyles, these two forms of steadfastness, connecting Chapter 3 firmly back to the foundations in Chapter 2.
So Chapter 3 isn't just a standalone set of instructions. It's the practical application built on the understanding of who we really are, which we got from Chapter 2.
You've got it. It provides the how-to for living in the world, grounded in that deeper wisdom.
Okay, wow. That's a lot to take in from Chapter 3. As we sort of wrap up this deep dive, what are the absolute must-remember takeaways for you?
For me, number one is definitely the principle of acting without attachment to the fruits karma yoga itself. It's profound.
Yeah.
Second, grasping the perspective of the wise person, seeing how they navigate the world differently because they understand those underlying forces, the gunas, and aren't hooked by them.
And the third?
Recognizing desire, seeing it clearly as that major obstacle, the thing that generates so much of our inner turmoil and bondage. Acknowledging its power is key.
So this isn't just philosophy for the sake of it. It really gives you tools, a framework maybe, to look at your own life, your work, your relationships, your choices.
Exactly. It offers a way to potentially live with more clarity, maybe feel less burdened by everything, and find a deeper sense of purpose in your actions.
Which leads to maybe a final thought, something for you, the listener, to chew on.
Yeah, try thinking about this. What have you consciously tried, even in small ways, to practice a bit more detachment from the outcomes of your actions? Just notice what happens. How might that actually change your experience of doing things?
Not focusing on the win or fail, but on the doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's definitely something to reflect on.
it could be quite revealing.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful and a reminder. We'll be back to continue this journey with a deep dive into Chapter 4 next time, exploring knowledge and action even further.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Hopefully it offered some valuable perspective, maybe even a shortcut to understanding these powerful ideas.